I really miss Yu-Gi-Oh! About 10 years ago, I, along with a couple of friends from high school, began to get back into Yu-Gi-Oh! It was more of a kind of joke. We were more goofing around, goofing off, because we were all class clowns. We thought it would be hilarious if you walked into a study hall and saw, a bunch of high schoolers playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Little did we realize how much that would backfire on us, and we all really enjoyed the game. But about 7 years ago, I stopped playing the game. Over the past 5 years, I've gotten back into and out of it, but the problem is, I think in the past 5 years in total, I have played maybe 13 months in total of all that. If I'm doing a math right, that's like 240 months, so 13 out of 240. I have not done that well with that. So mainly, I've been inspired by other YuGiTubers such as Ruggles and Yassine to get back into the game and sort of put my own twist on it. So, the second time I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! This is going to be the third time. The second time, I wasn't really having as much fun as I would like to, mainly because with the friends that I've made here where I live now, everybody was incredibly competitive with the game, and we were always playing top-tier decks, and so it was just learning the combos that everybody else was playing, and it was tons of mirror matches. I'm personally not a fan of the mirror matches, mainly because I always really, really loved the rogue factor, the fact that I could go into a match and know that my opponent would really have no idea how to combat what I was trying to do. I always got some kind of pleasure from that. So, since quarantine started happening, I began thinking back to what made me really, really fall in love with the game back in high school, and I think it's because my friends and I had a very limited card pool, and we didn't really have all of the necessary funds to really get playing into the top tier decks, so we used what cards we had, and we tried to make those decks as competitive as possible. It started with a family member of mine buying me the Dragoonity Legion structure deck, and one of my friends picking up Jirax, and two other of my friends picking up Worm and Fabled. And so all of us started learning more about the hidden arsenal archetypes and the dual terminal storyline. And one of the amazing things about that is that hidden arsenal introduced us to the concept of archetypes, since before that point, the cards that we had were cards that we were buying off of everybody in our school district that we could find. It didn't matter if you were a 6th grader or a high school senior. Us high school sophomores, we were going to get your Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. We didn't bully people, I just want to clarify that. We actually paid for all of these cards. We just, went out of our way to look for these cards, I guess is what I'm trying to say. When we went to the regionals location closest to us had a dual terminal machine, and I loved the rarity, like the holographic shatter foil of the dual terminal cards. I just whether it was that speckled or the broken glass thing, I just thought it looked so cool. So that's what I want to do here. I'm going to make a series where I'm going to be taking underrated decks and archetypes and making them as competitive as they can possibly be, because that's what I love doing, is just making these decks reach their ceiling and sometimes trying to push past it. I'm going to make a series where I'm going to be taking underrated decks and archetypes and making them as competitive as they can possibly be. So that's what I want to do with all of these archetypes. So there's about 10 locals in my area. I can go to 4 to 7 of them a week. So what I'm going to be doing is starting off with all of the hidden arsenal archetypes, taking them to these locals, making them as competitive as they possibly can be, and take them to regionals, take them to a YCS. Hopefully I plan to take at least one of these to a WCQ. So, I am just going to be doing the first 2 generations of the dual terminal storyline. Nothing with the 3rd generation, all of them known as the, Duelist Alliance decks. So there was Ritual Beast, Nekroz, Yang Zing, Shadal, Infernoid, Zephyra, and Cleafor and Stellar Knight. Those were the 8 decks. Like I said earlier, I've done a lot of research on these hidden arsenal archetypes. There's 19 of them in total, and as I said before, they consist of 2 different generations. Generation 1 consists of X-Saber and its sub-archetype XX-Saber. There is Mist Valley, Flamevel, and its sub-archetype Neo Flamevel, which weirdly enough is like Flamevel and Jirak put together. Ice Barrier, Worm, Ally of Justice, Gen X with its sub-archetypes R Gen X and Gen X Ally, Naturia, Fabled, Jirak, and Dragoonity. Generation 2 is Laval, Gem Knight, Gishki, Steel Swarm, Gusto, Vylon, Constellar, and Evil Swarm. Now, I know that Evil Swarm and Steel Swarm are mainly part of the same archetype. They're Vers and Invers, respectively. But because of how incredibly different their playstyles are, Steel Swarm is more of a Monarch-style type of deck, whereas Evil Swarm is more of a lockdown helmet deck, you could say. You know how True Draco was Masterpiece dot deck. Evil Swarm was basically Ophion dot deck at its time. So I'm going to be doing them separately since they're so radically different. Now, of these 19, only 5 of them have been competitively viable at some point in their time. Those are X-Saber, Dragoonity, Constellar, and Evil Swarm. People who have been in the game long enough know that Evil Swarm was one of the big 3 of the 2013 era of dueling, along with Spellbook Prophecy and Dragon Rulers. Dragoonity was also in that era. It was pretty competitive when it was released in around 2011, but they didn't see themselves exploded onto the spotlight until the baby rulers of the Dragon Ruler era were banned, and people found out that you could put the Dragon Rulers into the Dragoonity deck to have it at the same level of consistency it was with the baby rulers. Constellar was at the periphery of that era as well, and X-Saber, they were huge back in 2010, 2011. Everybody was playing them. In fact, they won the 2010 World Championship. And Gem Knight, those were the most recent with their release of the Link card that they have in 2018. Gem Knight FTK was everywhere. Of the remaining 14, only 10 of them have any tops to show of. All of those tops either being anywhere from, 1 to 10 tops, whether it be an OTS top, regional, or YCS top, and those would be Mist Valley, Flamevel, Worm, Gen X, Naturia, Fabled, Jirac, Gishki, Laval, and Gusto. Surprisingly enough, of those 10, Worms were actually the most competitive, as they had the highest amount of tops. Yeah, they only have 8 tops, but still. And then Laval and Gusto were a close second, both of them having 6 tops since they've been released. The last 4, unsurprisingly, they have no tops, and from what I was able to find on any YouTube video mentioning them, they even had minimal success at a local level. Those would be Ice Barrier, which surprisingly enough has an incredibly active Pojo forum thread, Ally of Justice, Steel Swarm, and Vylon. Funnily enough, Steel Swarm and Vylon have seen success at local levels, but that's about it. So I'm going to go through and show and tell you all of the amount of tops, when they were played, and any other relevant information. So the first one I'm going to go through all of these canonically based on how they were released or introduced in the dual terminal storyline. So first we have X-Saber. They were played primarily between February of 2010 until November of 2011, when unfortunately Rescue Cat finally got banned and the whole deck kind of fell apart. So they have 2 first place tops, one of which was, as I said earlier, the 2010 World Championship, and that same year in 2010 they won the Toronto Championship Series. The Championship Series, along with the Shonen Jump Series, those were kind of the precursors to YCS. They have 4 different second place tops. They have 12 top 4 places. One of those top 4 was actually in 2018 at a 90-person OTS tournament. So there might be some hope for X-Sabers. They have 7 different top 8 places. For top 16, they have 14. One of those was actually the 2017 Sao Paulo Regional in Brazil, which I thought was impressive. They have 7 top 32s. As for Mist Valley, these were played primarily between October 2012 to October 2014. They have no first place, no second place, but they do have 2 top 4 places, both of those being the Ninja variant, mainly with Ninja Grandmaster Hanzo using Super Transformation to go into Apex Avian, which we see now with the Simorg lock, and was apparently around as well during Pepe format. People would pendulum summon Apex Avian to just get that one negate on the board. Those 2 were done by Sean Hunt in around 2012, and then Andres Murillo, he got top 4 in an Ecuador regional in 2014. They have 1 top 8, which was a Gen X variant. The Mist Valley decks that were the Gen X variants mainly used Gen X Ally Birdman and Gen X Blast Fan to be able to go off and do combos, since Blast Fan was an easily special summonable Gen X card that was Wind to go with the whole Mist Valley archetype, and Gen X Ally Birdman would be able to work very well with Divine Wind of the Mist Valley, being able to bump a Wind monster back to your hand to special summon to get a level 3 tuner on the field to help facilitate more combos later on. They have 1 top 32, they have 2 top 16s, respectively Ninja and Gen X variants, and they have 1 top 32, and 2 times they have made it to day 2 of a YCS. Once was at a 2017 ARG series in Chicago, and the other one was actually very recently in 2018 at the Dutch WCQ. A Mist Valley deck made it to day 2 of that. Next is Flamevell, which is featured on Rank 10 YGO Legacy of the Worthless series, they actually have 3 tops. One of which was a top 4 at 2011 YCS Charlotte. It seems to be a Flamevel Lightsworn variant. Another one was top 8. That was at the 2010 Toronto Championship Series, the one where X-Sabers won. And then we've got one top 32. Couldn't find the location on that, but it's reported somewhere that a Flamevel deck, probably a Lightsworn variant, though seems to be the most successful, got a top 32 at a tournament in 2011. Ice Barrier, also referenced in Rank 10 YGO's Legacy of the Worthless, has not a single top, as I mentioned before. Then we have Worm, which was also in Rank 10 YGO's Legacy of the Worthless, but surprisingly enough, was one of the most competitive decks of the lower tier Hidden Arsenal series. They have 8 tops, like I said before. They were played primarily in May of 2011, all the way to around Dragon Ruler format in 2013. They couldn't keep up. But they actually do have a regional win. Max DeMorris in the 2012 Niles, Ohio Regional, he won it playing Worms. They have one top 4, was at YCS Rhode Island. They have one top 8, which was surprisingly in April of 2015. They have 2 top 16s. One was the 2011 YCS Orlando, and the other was recently in 2018, day 2 of an LLDS series in London by Liam O'Donovan. So shout out to him. Good job for getting top 16 in 2018 with Worms. And then they've got 2 top 32, and then they've got one which was, one of them made it to day 2 of a YCS. Why I'm specifically mentioning this is because the guy who made it to day 2 of YCS, he actually built the Worm deck only 3 days beforehand and then brought it just to see what it would do, which I found to be incredibly impressive. Next up, Ally of Justice, also in Legacy of the Worthless, not a single top. Next up is Gen X, also in Legacy of the Worthless. There's actually quite a few Hidden Arsenal archetypes in Legacy of the Worthless and Archetype Archive. But Gen X actually has 2 tops. One was at the 2011 Indianapolis Regional, and another one got top 16 in a 2013 Regional. The thing about Gen X, though, they're easily splashable in many decks due to the vast amount of attributes that they have and the attribute support that they are intended to be due to the Hidden Arsenal dual terminal storyline. So they've been mixed with Mermail Atlantean, more commonly referred to lately as Water. They've been put into Karakuri, Geargia, and Machina decks over years, over the years. After that, we've got Naturia. They have at least 1 top. I wasn't able to find a lot, but I do know that they were mildly competitive as a rogue choice in around 2011-2012. Trell of Team APS got his first top with a Naturia deck, as you can see in this clip of their video right here.
Playing this, like, what's some of the stuff that you've played and gotten actual tops with? There's like that Naturia thing.
Cubics, Naturias, and most people don't know what Naturias are. As far as the first deck that I played in the tournament that wasn't meta or top tier, it was literally my very first regional top deck. I played Naturias. I put it together like right before the regionals because I like Naturia Bamboo Shoot and I like Naturia Cliff. And a lot of you new players might not even know what that is, so you might have to look that up. But
after Naturia, we've got Fabled. I was able to find 1 top. There was a top 32 at the 2011 YCS Providence, and then 1 deck was able to make it to day 2 of a YCS Philadelphia. Wasn't able to find the year. I'm assuming it was probably 2012. After Fabled, we've got Jirac. They have one major top, got top 16 at a Michigan Regional in 2013, and then they made it to Day 2 of YCS Toronto in 2013. That was me. That was my deck. I made it to Day 2 of YCS Toronto in 2013 with my Jirac deck. Dragoonity. These were played primarily, 2011 was when the more pure variants were played, but then 2013 they were played with the Dragon Ruler archetype. So they have 4 first place wins, 1 second place win, 5 top 4s, 29 top 8s, 8 top 16, 4 top 32s, and I was able to find one of them that made it to Day 2 of a YCS. I'm assuming there's a lot more, but these are the ones that I was able to find recorded, whether it be on Yu-Gi-Oh! Top Deck or YouTube, Pojo forums, Reddit, all that kind of stuff. Laval's, these were played more towards the end of 2013. One Laval deck was able to win the 2014 ARG Providence. Shout out to James Chow for being able to do that. 4 of them were able to get top 8, and 1 was able to get top 32. One of those top 8s was actually Asian Persuasion, so good job for him. Shout out to him. I've been seeing that on YouTube recently. He's been trying to make the Laval deck work thanks to Master Rule 5. He's one of the people on YouTube trying to do that. After that, we've got Gem Knight. So newer players are probably very familiar with Gem Knight. As I said earlier in the video, Gem Knight FTK was available thanks to the Link card that they were able to get. These were played more recently, as I said before, 2018, 2019. They have 10 first place wins, 2 second place wins, 3 top 4 wins, 12 top 8 wins, 4 top 16 wins, 6 top 32 wins, and 5 of them were able to make it to Day 2 of a YCS or a WCQ. After that, we've got Gishki. These were played primarily between April 2013 to July 2014. They would have been played a lot more if the hand loop that they were able to have wasn't hit prematurely before Gishki was released into the TCG. But they were still able to be played quite a bit. They actually have a top 4 win by a player in Manaus, Brazil. They have 1 top 8, they have 1 top 16 win, and then they have 2 top 32 wins, which were at the YCSs in Atlanta and San Diego in 2013. Steel Swarm, as I said earlier, not a single top anywhere. Gusto has had quite a few tops. They've got 1 second place, 1 top 8, 1 top 16, and 3 top 32s, one of which was in 2018, which I found to be impressive, and I was able to find 1 deck list that made it to Day 2 of a YCS. Vylon, which was in the Archetype Archive of Rank 10 YGO, not a single top. As for Constellar, these were played, as I said earlier, in the Dragon Ruler format, mainly because that they were an incredibly good way to combat both Evil Swarm and Prophecy. They didn't do too well with the Dragon Ruler matchup, but their side deck options were able to give Dragon Rulers a run for their money when in the hands of a very intelligent player. So Constellars were able to get 3 first place wins. Cool enough, they were able to get 2 of those wins in recent OTS tournaments, one in 2016 and another in 2018, which shows that Constellar might be able to come back into the format soon enough. I know that those were from 2 and 4 years ago, but that shows that Constellar could be viable. They've got 2 second place wins, 21 top 8 wins, 2 top 16 wins, 2 top 32 wins, and 1 was able to make it to day 2 of a YCS. And finally, Evil Swarm, which was one of the big 3 in the Dragon Roller format. They have 3 tournament wins, 6 second place wins, 6 top 4 wins, 45 top 8 wins, 8 top 16 wins, and 13 top 32 wins. I decided to not put any day 2 wins of a YCS or WCQ, mainly because they were incredibly competitively viable back at that time. So, to start off this series, I'm going to begin with X-Saber, since they were the first archetype canonically introduced in the dual terminal storyline, which means that Mist Valley is going to be next up. So I've gone through every single forum I could find, whether it be Pojo or Reddit, every single YouTube video that I could find, and any mention anywhere of those archetypes, deck lists, any kind of tech cards that were put in there, how people won, how people played them. And I combed through all of it. I did. It took me about a month, but I was able to do it. So, we're going to begin. Am I going to have fun? Hopefully. Am I going to pull my hair out? Probably. So anyway, like, subscribe, and hit that notification button to see how I'm going to do with this series.